Hey folks, it's a glorious fall day here at Flock, and today I wanted to go over some heirloom tulip varieties that we'll be planting. And I wanted to go over these before I actually planted them, because then I wouldn't know where they are in the garden or if I'm planting them in pots. And actually I will be planting probably more than half of these in pots and others in the garden, and I will be sharing why very soon. But a number of these, I would say probably 2/3 of these are broken tulips. And for those of you who have never heard that term before, you're probably like, why are you planting some broken tulips? But the term is for tulips that have either a tulip breaking virus or a tulip band breaking virus, or there's other related filamentous viruses called like Rembrandt breaking virus, for instance. This is actually what caused Tulipomania back in the 1630s in the Netherlands, where folks were buying tulips, variegated, feathery, striated tulips, for thousands of dollars. I think the one that was reportedly went for the most is the Semper Augustus tulip, which has this feathery striations, variegations, and it was virus infected, and people were paying the prices of houses for it. And I think some folks will be like, oh my God, I can't believe it, but we just went through houseplant mania, and it probably is still going on, but folks were spending tens of thousands of dollars, which is essentially the price of a car, for some plants. So I could see where this whole mindset has come from. And I'm sharing these with you not to create a second Tulipomania, but to actually just showcase a bit of history and to also share some of the heirloom varieties that have fallen by the wayside, or you may not be able to get so easily on the commercial market anymore. So yes, actually 2/3 of these are infected by the virus. And what is that tulip breaking virus? Well, just to give you a little bit of an overview of it, it's a cosmopolitan virus, so it exists pretty much everywhere. And in the commercial market, they've essentially gotten rid of it. And we have some more commercial varieties of tulips, like the Rembrandt tulips, that have a bit more of that color breaking. And what I mean by color breaking is that the virus actually affects the anthocyanins in the tulip petals. So it creates this feathery, striated, variegated look within the petals. So the color actually technically breaks. So it might be a white variegation or yellow variegation or mottled, or it might be a deeper color variegation. And you know, in houseplants as well as tulips, people have always found this to be beautiful. Another bit of a tulip history, back in like the 1590s, that's when tulips started to come to Europe from Turkey. That's where most of them are from. And then it was in the 1630s where this tulip breaking virus and other, like I said, related filamentous viruses were taking shape. I think the first one had been discovered by Clusius, who is a famous person who studied tulips, and actually Tulipa clusiana is named after him. And the only reason why I think that they have stayed kind of on the outskirts of the market is largely because of the work of Hortus bulborum in the Netherlands. And they grow many different kinds of tulips, both conventional varieties, commercial varieties that you could find now, but also the historic heirloom varieties. And I would say that the tulip breaking virus is not necessarily a virus that is easily passed on from tulip to tulip. If you have good sanitation methods, if you keep them away from your other tulips, then it likely won't be transferred, because you can't just transfer it from touching one bulb to the other. The way that it transfers is if like an aphid comes and eats that tulip and then flies and then goes and sucks the juices of another tulip, or if you're grafting and you're using like a dirty tool and then you use it on one of your tulips that doesn't have the virus, and then it passes from tulip to tulip. So what I would recommend is that you maybe plant those in pots and away from your other tulips. And also the tulip breaking virus can affect another genus within the Liliaceae family, and that's lilies. So if you have a number of lilies, whether it's native or non-native lilies, it can affect the growth of the lilies as well, so I would recommend not planting near those. So you do have to be a bit more careful and cautious when you're planting these bulbs. Now, in some cases, the tulip bulb virus had affected the growth rate and made a lot of the sizes of the tulips smaller. But in most cases, it just actually creates a variegation. And the ones that had become available from the Hortus bulborum are ones that don't seem to have affected the growth rate and are just there for the beauty of the tulip. Another thing I should say about the broken tulip varieties is that what makes it interesting is that the virus can affect the different petals of the different plants in completely different ways. So it'll never kind of look the same. Some of these heirloom varieties are not all broken tulips, but I wanted to share that with you as a little bit of history and also to showcase some different varieties. And again, these aren't blooming right now. I'm shooting this in the fall. It's late October when I'm filming this, and I will be getting these into pots or the ground respectively soon. And I'm in the Finger Lakes region of New York, so I could pretty much be planting these up until probably the end of November, provided that there's no snow on the ground here. So somebody asked me that the other day, like, how late can you actually plant your tulips? In this region where I'm zone 5, 6, that I would say that you could plant them all the way up until the end of November, provided that you don't have snow. So the first one that I'll introduce you to is the bridesmaid, and this was discovered around the 1900s. And actually this is before the tulip breaking virus is even well known. So I think it was known that there was something affecting the tulips, but I don't think it was until the 1930s when tulip breaking virus was actually identified. So it was one of the first plant viruses that were discovered. I think like the tobacco mosaic virus may have been one of the first, and also in like the literature within China, they've identified certain viruses or certain pests of viral origin, but they didn't really define it as a virus. So it is one of the first ones that had been discovered, which is interesting because it was such a commercial crop in Europe, to think about it that way. And it wasn't even a food crop. It was a crop of beauty, so to speak. So bridesmaid, it's a very slender tulip, and it has this kind of cherry red and then white feathery look to it. So that was one from the 1900s. Mabel, and this one is also kind of got a cherry red, but it's got a squatter flower, and it has like white streaks to it. So that was a tulip from 1856. Absalon, and this is an interesting one. I will be planting this one up in a pot, not with the other ones, because these are kind of more purple whites, red whites. This one happens to be kind of a brownish maroon color, which is a very unique color of tulip. And I will be planting this up with another tulip that isn't broken. This one has a bit of that chocolatey, kind of purplish maroon color, and it has these streaks of gold through it. So it's a very handsome tulip, and that's from 1780. This one's got a funny name. It's called the lizard tulip, and it's from 1903, and it has this like pinkish with some hints of lavender to reds to whites, so it's kind of across the board. It's a tapestry of color, and each one of these bags has about 3 tulips in it. So I don't have a lot of these tulips, and these tend to be a bit more expensive. So again, these are kind of test tulips. I'm testing them, seeing how I like them. I'm very curious about, because you never know what you're going to get with a tulip that has a tulip breaking virus, because it could come out in so many different ways, and it will come out maybe a different way next year. So yeah, I just think it's fascinating. So this one is called Columbine, and it's from 1929. It's basically the year before they discovered tulip breaking virus. And this one has white blushed with a bit more of the lavenders and soft purples. And this tulip is called Black and White, and it's from 1920. And this is not technically black, but it has like deep purple, and it has white stripes in it. And this one was discovered at the Hortus bulborum. They don't know whether they lost the tag to it, or if it was a hybrid with something else. So they just named it black and white, and they have allowed that for purchase now. And you can get these, I would say, more easily in Europe because of just the nature that the Hortus bulborum is in the Netherlands. And again, like I said, not many of these make the commercial trade. And so for the Europeans out there who watch the channel, you'll probably have easier access to these than we do here in the States. This one is called Insulinde, and this is from 1914. And this has petals of like soft yellow, and it has feathery rose colors as well. So that one can be very interesting. Now, I will say that the one that got me into the heirloom varieties and the one that I had been searching for is because the new beds that we've put in the back by the meadow house here, which is behind me. We put these beds in about 4 months ago. We're really looking to get like lavenders, purples, soft whites, deep merlots, kind of purpley black colors. So one of the tulips I had come across that had this gorgeous shade of purpley lavender was George Grappa, and that is from 1939. And this one is not broken. So I've covered all the broken tulips with the tulip breaking virus. This one is just a really gorgeous purple. I hadn't seen that purple before, and I was like, which one is that plant? But I couldn't find it in the commercial trade. You find lots of other ones like Purple Prince and a number of others, but this one just had a very unique lavender purpley shade. It kind of reminded me, like my whole room when I was a kid was the color purple, like lavenders, lilacs, purple. And this kind of reminded me of the purple from my room when I was growing up. So I got 5 of these, and I'll probably end up planting maybe a couple in a pot and then the rest of them in the garden, because I'm afraid that if I just plant them all in the garden, I'm going to lose track of them because I've planted so many other different, I think I've planted over 100, maybe 120 different varieties in the gardens, and they're all just, they're not labeled. They're all kind of mixed together. So that's what I'm thinking. And this is the one that basically got me down this rabbit hole. Okay, the next one that I got 10 of is from 1845. I will say that George Grappa is from 1939. This one is called Color Cardinal, and it's from 1845, and it's just a nice, pure, true red tulip. I was interested in planting some of the kind of lipstick reds to merlots to burgundies in the garden behind me, so I probably will be planting a number of these both in the garden and in plant pots. This one is the Archeron from 1913, and this one has also a deep garnet red shade, but it has elements of rust and smokiness. And I thought that sounded, just like the color of that sounded very alluring to me. And again, this is probably one that I will be planting within the garden. There's only 3 of them. So whether that makes it into a planter pot that I layer other bulbs with or not. And then here is, I'll go over another red one. This is Elegan Rubra, and this is from 1872. And what's interesting about this one is it kind of reminds me a bit more of a species tulip. So one of my favorite varieties of tulips is a species called Tulipa acuminata, and it has these gorgeous kind of fiery petals that are dagger shaped. This one is a bit fatter as far as a dagger goes, but it still has that quality of being kind of like tipped at the top of the petals. And this was something that was very popular back in the day. And so it was more of the species varieties. I think even more before people started to cultivate them in a serious manner. So that one has survived the test of time. Now the next one, and probably the last one I think on the list, that I have here, is the Duck Vantol tulips. And this one I bought was the Duck Vantol violet, but they have like Duck Vantol red, they have Duck Vantol yellow, and this is from the 1700s. And these used to be in favor in the commercial trade. And these are really short, miniature tulips. So they'd get maybe 7, maybe they max out at 8 inches. And these used to be the favored tulips, and I could see these making a comeback because a lot of the species tulips are short. And I personally like that. I mean, I think they work really well in like naturalizing within the lawn, for example, or if you're using them in a rock garden, or if you're using them in smaller pots and you don't want this like 24-inch, tall tulip in one of your pots, this could actually be quite smart and beautiful. So they actually fell out of favor, and the larger varieties became more favorable because, which is kind of the antithesis of, and oftentimes you want smaller shrubs, smaller plants, shorter plants for smaller gardens because folks are downsizing or can't get a lot of land, and so they have small gardens, or it's more manageable, for example, lots of different reasons. But people wanted plants that they could cut and put in vases. And so those taller tulip varieties with the bigger blooms are the ones that became favored. So it's interesting that these fell out of favor. And, again, all these heirloom varieties, whether it's plants or whether it's animals, if people don't continue to cultivate them or find interest in this history, then a lot of these would fall by the wayside and they just wouldn't be grown any longer. So I have to tip my hat to the folks in the Netherlands and at Hortus for keeping this piece of history alive, because it's pretty interesting to have that as part of the cultural history of a people and a nation. Tulips really shaped the Netherlands. It was a huge part of their trade, and it's still a huge part of their trade today. So again, I think it's fascinating. It's interesting to be able to grow a piece of history like this, whether it's in your garden or whether it's in pots. And so I just wanted to take this moment to introduce you to some of these heirloom varieties out there, and to let you know that there are heirloom varieties that are on the market that you could grow as well, and to share a little piece of that history in your garden. So hopefully this was informative and that you enjoyed it. Sorry I don't have big tulips growing in pots right now, but it is the fall. It's the time to actually be planting them, and we'll have to wait until springtime, April and May, to see some of these beauties emerge from the depths and the slumber of winter. So thank you again, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. If you've been enjoying these videos, give the channel a follow, tap the notifications button so you know when we drop the next video, and become a member of the channel to support our work. We'll be wrapping up the garden chores here in the next couple months and switching gears to more renovations and interviews around the area, so stay tuned here. We'll see you in the next video.